Hello, my name is Morgan Prost, and I'm going to be presenting today Red Group's email etiquette presentation. This was created by Adria, Candice, Aaron, Jessica, and myself. In this presentation, we're going to be talking about following proper email etiquette in a professional setting. So we're going to be looking at these four essential things. We're going to talk about conveying important information and how to do that, gaining respect, appearing credible, and receiving timely responses. All of these four things really can be said to be principles that maybe we can apply across a broader spread of ways of communicating. But for this purposes of this presentation, this is strictly for email. So we're going to be tying these four principles towards email etiquette. First off, we're going to talk about conveying important information. Emails should be brief, clear, and concise. A helpful way to ensure this is to make sure you know specifically what you need to be talking about and who you're talking about this to. So being brief, clear, and concise helps convey that important information that you need to be sending. You don't want to be throwing in a bunch of other unimportant information that could just confuse the person who might be reading your email. Confidential emails may need to be encrypted. I know at my work, I work at a bank. When we are sending confidential information to our customers, we do what's called a send secure email. This is done by just adding that phrase into the subject line. This then encrypts the email and the customer receives it. They need to set up a temporary password and account to open and see the contents of that email. Depending on where you're working, there may be different ways of doing that. Being aware of potential third parties. So depending on where you're sending this email to, there are some people who I send emails to where it is a group email. And because it's a group email, there might be multiple people who will see this email. So in order to make sure it gets to the one person I may be specifically in touch with, I'll write in the subject line, attention to so-and-so. Wendy is actually the last one I would have written. But this just helps to, again, make sure that that important information gets to whom you want to send it to. Always read, revise, and review before sending your emails. I read mine usually about 3 times, and I'll ask, is it sending, or is my sending this with the correct information? Because that way, it's just going to always read, revise, and review before sending. I always read my emails about 3 times before I send them out. This just ensures that I catch any errors or any misinformation that might not be as important as other things in there. So just to make it again brief, clear, concise, and that's just very helpful for whomever it is that's reading the email. Next, proper email format. The subject line should be short and specific. This just ensures that people who are getting hundreds of emails, I get about maybe 50 on a really, really crazy day. But that way you know exactly what you're receiving and who you might be receiving it from. Salutations should be appropriate when you're addressing an individual. Use their specific name. When you know you're only addressing one person, maybe just use their title. Or if you're addressing a group of people, you can refer to them as the group. And then finally, if you are talking to an organization, perhaps using that organization's name as in your salutation. The body and text must be clear and concise. We just kind of talked about that. So using those same principles to make your information as accurate and applicable as possible. Signature may be a formal or informal signature. So for my emails, I have my name, my title, my contact information. That way, whoever I'm sending my email to can then get back to me. So sometimes there are some people who may have an actual signature line that has their formal signature on it, but most people for emails, you're just going to have the contact information at the bottom. When gaining respect through sending emails, the next couple of subjects are going to help with that. But to get us started, we're going to avoid abbreviated or colloquial words, slang words. It's just unprofessional. So that's going to help you to gain the respect of the person you might be trying to communicate with. Avoid the use of emojis. Now, this one, I didn't write this slide. I agree. Do not use emojis. However, I think you have to kind of judge that based on the relationship that you have with the person you're emailing. Um, Sometimes for coworkers, it might be appropriate to use that depending on how closely you work with them. A lot of times it helps with this next part, trying to mimic the tone of the intended recipient. Um, but back on the emojis quick, when you're sending it to somebody you don't know, don't use emojis. Again, that's just going to make you look unprofessional and it will not help in gaining respect. Trying to mimic the tone of the intended recipient, back on that, um, when you're doing that, you are just putting an emphasis on making sure maybe the way you're saying something conveys the tone on which you want to be conveying. So if you're writing an email that's towards a specific audience, it's hard to convey tone through email. Just in general, it's hard to do that. So maybe by being a little more aware of what you're writing and how you're phrasing things might help the person interpret the tone you intend to be sending to that person. Appearing credible. So a lot can be said about this. Again, when you're getting so many emails on a daily basis, you don't want to waste your times on the ones that do not have any credibility or relevance. Getting straight to the point. That is very important. When you have that many emails to read through, you don't want to waste time reading just whatever garbage it has been that's been sent to you. You want to have something clear, concise, and gets right to the point of what they're trying to tell you. And that goes the same with sending emails out to people as well. Checking for spelling and grammar errors. Uh, Typos happen. It just does. And autocorrect can't catch everything. And then sometimes autocorrect does its job and then some. I can't tell you how many times I've had a word that I spelt correctly and autocorrect, for whatever reason, changed it in a completely different word. And it just go through it. Again, that's why I read things 3 times when I send out emails. It just ensures that you're going to avoid that issue. Using an appropriate greeting and signature, stating who you are at the beginning after your salutation, and then at the end, again, using your name and giving your contact information is helpful. Receiving a timely response. So there are some things you can do to ensure that you are getting timely responses back from the people you send your emails out to. Being aware of your intended email recipient. Know who you're sending it to. Again, large group, individual, organization. By doing that, by knowing that, you can then tailor your email specifically so you can hopefully, if it's a potential client, get a response from them. Sign your name at the bottom. Again, this kind of is more along the lines of if you have that signature line in there. Otherwise, your contact information is going to be fine as well. Paying attention to the time and date at which you send the email. Sometimes when you're getting later in the day, people are wrapping up projects. I sometimes forget to check my email in the afternoon if I get busy working on a project. Uh, so if you send it later in the day, your odds of getting it back to you in the time that you maybe want it back to you aren't always as good. So being aware of that can help you maybe choose to call somebody instead of emailing. But if you do email, know what could or could not happen. Effective response and follow-up. By checking back in with the person you had sent your email to, if they haven't gotten back to you, that's really effective because not only does it show persistence, but it shows that you're really trying to make a connection with that individual. Again, another helpful thing if you're trying to maybe gain a new customer. Also can be said that if you do too much follow-up, it can be annoying and an off-put instead. Uh, so that's not good. You don't want that to happen. Responding within 24 hours. I agree with that. Try to respond within 24 hours. Sooner, maybe, if you can, when you are the one receiving emails. Depending on the situation, if you know the time constraints of a project, maybe 24 to 48 hours, but no longer than that, really. And don't ever respond when you're angry. I can attest to that, not because I've done it, but because I did not respond to something when I was angry, and I'm so thankful that I didn't, because when you are angry, you don't think straight. You just don't. Your mind gets flustered, and you're not going to be as effective. It's just better to take a step back, take a day, just sleep on whatever it was that you were upset about, and come back to it because you're going to have a whole lot more credibility, ability to maintain respect, and that just falls in line with everything else in here. So, make it simple, make it memorable, make it inviting to look at, make it fun to read. Leo Burnett, great words and a great way to kind of bring to a close this presentation. I really hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for your time.